Excellent. We have a really fun panel coming up here. It's been a fun day so far. You know, we've covered a lot of ground, covered a lot of the different aspects of dairy production systems. A lot of amazing talks today. So just to reiterate, the Dairy Innovation Hub, is focused on ensuring the dairy community remains productive, sustainable, and competitive by increasing research, talent, and partnerships that address real-world challenges. Our presenters this afternoon with Forward Agriculture represent a complementary example of that approach. Forward Agriculture is a statewide coalition led by WiSys that brings together farmers, community leaders, university researchers, investors, public partners that help shape Wisconsin's agriculture tech research and developmental agenda. Since its launch, Forward Agriculture has engaged hundreds of stakeholders from across all 13 universities of 13 University of Wisconsin campuses, as well as agribusinesses, nonprofits, and rural communities. With that, I'm pleased to introduce Arjun Sanga from WiSys to kick off our discussion and lead us into the panel.
Thank you. I'm Arjun Sanga. I'm the president of WiSys. It's a real honor to be here. I want to thank the Dairy Innovation Hub. Been very great partners and very generous in inviting us to talk about this very interesting journey that we've had. Think cheese curds. That was what I said to the NSF panel that we were the semifinalists for the Type 2 engine. This was a competition for $160 million that this group has been working on for years. And we talked about cheese curds as it's a billion-dollar industry, as you all know, that's resulted from the byproducts of the cheesemaking industry. So how many other billion-dollar industries could we come up with from waste to worth or residue to revenue? And that's what we were trying to tell NSF with this coalition that we've built together, that we have all the pieces here in Wisconsin to do some great things innovating in agriculture. So how did we get here? We started with the idea more than 6 years ago, even before this National Science Foundation program existed, asking thought leaders across Wisconsin, what are the big challenges for Wisconsin, and how do we marry that with the tremendous intellectual capacity that we have with you all and across the University of Wisconsin system to say, hey, we've got a lot to offer to solve the problems that are out there. And you wouldn't be surprised with the three topics that came back: water, energy, and agriculture. And we knew that agriculture was where we needed to go next. So why? Because it's a Wisconsin thing. Agriculture is something that is really ingrained in Wisconsin. And you can see all of the assets that we have, and that we have this incredible comparative advantage over other states. I don't have to tell you about being number one in dairy farms and cows, but on this journey, I've learned a lot about all the other assets that we have across Wisconsin. And of course, with our ecosystem of so many colleges and universities, with our academic expertise and innovation expertise, and of course the economic impact, it is something that we must focus on. But we have a challenge, and the challenge in this area is that what we learned during this journey is that our innovation capacity, which is huge, which we have across Wisconsin, which includes all of you, doesn't match up with the entrepreneurship capacity that we have, where we have 8 of the 10 largest food companies, but we have the lowest amount of VC funding in agricultural technologies. And we're 42nd in the Kauffman Entrepreneurship Index. So how can we close this gap? Well, this is what we have been working on. As you can see, if we all work together and we're thinking about innovation in this area, and we're getting all of our different sectors together, these cross-sector partnerships, to think about innovation in a different way. Instead of it just emanating from our academic institutions, are we bringing our industry partners to the table? Are we bringing farmers to the table? Are we bringing nonprofits to the table, all sitting together and asking the question, what are the big challenges and what are some of the solutions that we could come up with? And then also bringing some of our investment partners together. So that's that smart money that can invest in new ideas that are coming out of this coalition. So you can see that doing this has had tremendous impact. So far, what have we done in the several years that we've been working on this? Well, we've had a lot of traction. We have this network. We have partnerships, and we've got validation from that. You can see that we have a lot of nodes across Wisconsin that we've connected together to see how we could all work together. We were able to win a Type 1 awardee, a Type 1 award from the National Science Foundation for $1 million to develop an innovation engine. And that's what we set out to do, and that was a 2-year award, and we've built this coalition, and you'll hear from several of our partners on the panel what we've been doing with that. We also were able, as I mentioned, we're a semifinalist in the Type 2 competition, and through that, we were able to go and talk to Governor Evers and get additional support from the governor to be able to continue the good work that we're doing. And then I should point out the NSF EPIC Awards. We don't take credit for that, but there's examples of that where the National Science Foundation and other groups see the value of the coalition and then are using that to kind of build support in other parts of the state because they know that we are working together and that we're connected. So you can see we've got 12 core partners, 15 industry partners on our advisory board. We had over 400 participants over several year time that we've talked to build this coalition. And we have a current application that we had in front of the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. We didn't get funded in this round, but we were asked to reapply for the next round, and hopefully we'll get funded then. So I wanted to show a short video. You'll have to tell me how to play it. Do we just click? We won an award from the National Science Foundation of $1 million to create Forward Agriculture. We're now competing for over $200 million.
One of the real successes of Forward Agriculture is bringing in people from all corners of the state and bring them all together for a goal for the entire state.
Forward Agriculture has the opportunity to really transform the agricultural system in our region.
WiSys is known globally as a leader within technology transfer with respect to smaller universities.
It's been recognized as a national model for how to do this. Very few other states have anything close to this at all.
The way that WiSys connects the universities to each other, to business, to industry, to communities, is exactly what is needed to push innovation forward.
So that's kind of the reason why. I mean, WiSys we're leading the coalition, but we aren't the coalition. And we decided to have it be a part of WiSys. So we recently launched the program as a separate division of WiSys. Now, as I mentioned, we got state support along the way, and I wanted to play for you some of the things that our leaders said in support of this program as we put our NSF application forward.
Hey there, folks. Governor Evers here. I'm proud to share my support for the WiSys-led coalition Forward Agriculture. As you know, agriculture is the cornerstone of Wisconsin's economy, generating over $116 billion annually and creating hundreds of thousands of jobs in our state. And throughout the years, my administration has been proud to support this critical industry. Whether it's our designation as a regional tech hub, securing $150 million for Wisconsin's agricultural roads improvement program, or investing in our meat and dairy processors, we are working to connect the dots between two of Wisconsin's greatest traditions, agriculture and innovation. And Forward Agriculture is an important partner in this work. They're helping create a resilient, sustainable, and innovation-driven ag economy that will support small farms, rural communities, and workforce development statewide. I was proud to commit $1 million in state funds and named WiSys a strategic partner to our Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. Your investment of $160 million will be a game changer for Wisconsin and a national model for agricultural innovation that has the potential to have an even greater impact on our state and beyond. So thank you for your consideration and take care, folks.
So we went ahead and hired a Forward Ag director, and we're excited to have him. He'll be starting on June 1st, and hopefully we'll get a chance to meet many of you. And so we've been able to launch this program. I wanted to give you just a few highlights. We launched a grant program as part of this called our Youth-Inspired Research Program, and we were able to fund 7 projects, and we're hoping to see some real, you'll hear at least about one of them from the panel. We had other aspects of our program where we had worked on policy issues as well as entrepreneurship, where we're going to be launching a digital community to be able to connect partners across the state. So I wanted to give a lot of recognition. We have a tremendous team. We had a core partner team that's been working together for years. We built a Forward Agriculture board of leaders who are really committed to this project. And then you can see that we have an industry advisory board with some really key industry partners. So I wanted to leave you with this comment, like, what can you do to be a part of this? I think that you could provide us with insight. We'd love to have as many of you join in the conversation as we have our different working groups work on different ideas. You can build connections for us and can introduce us to partners. I really want you to think about research collaborations. We have this tremendous network through Forward Ag, and as you're thinking about your research and how can that network benefit your program, and we would be happy to participate and join in that. And then finally, if you have sources of capital, we would be really interested in connecting with that. So with that, I'll turn it over.
Thanks, Arjun. That was great. All right, I'm Mike Tiboris. I am the policy co-lead for Forward Agriculture, and I'm also the Agriculture and Water Policy Director for River Alliance of Wisconsin. And I'm fairly certain I took a swing dancing class in this room in the 90s with my now wife. It was the 90s. We were really into swing dancing for like 15 minutes. We have a wonderful panel. With a lot of experience here, and I'm just going to introduce them very briefly, and then we'll talk through some questions together. First, and I'll go down the line, I've got Emily Bauer here, who is a member of the core leadership team for Forward Agriculture and the Youth-Inspired Research Group. She is the Director of Licensing for WARF, for Agricultural Biotechnology. And in this position, she works closely with UW-Madison's academic and industry partners to promote commercialization of new technologies. Blane Huppert is director of the University Business Collaboration Center at UW River Falls, where he works to connect students and faculty with industry partners to support innovation, hands-on learning, and regional economic growth. Before serving in that role, Blane led the cross-sector partnerships development for WiSys and for the Forward Agriculture program. Sarita Chauhan is a member of the Forward Agriculture Industry Advisory Board. Dr. Chauhan is a senior biotechnologist at GEA with experience in scientific research, data analytics, and business strategy. She helped launch GEA's new Food Application and Technology Center, which opened last year in Janesville, Wisconsin. And the facility was established to provide companies exploring or diversifying into new foods with the ability to refine ideas and create exciting, sustainable, and economically feasible products. Dr. Joseph Sanford is a recipient of the Forward Agriculture Use-Inspired Research Funding. Dr. Sanford is an assistant professor in the School of Agriculture and a faculty researcher with the Wisconsin Dairy Innovation Hub at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, where he built a research program centered on agricultural wastewater and nutrient management, including farmstead, edge-of-field runoff, precision manure application, water reuse, pathogen transport, and emerging contaminants like PFAS. And finally, at the end here, we have Kevin Ladwig, who is the managing director of 1945 Capital, a venture arm of Johnsonville Holdings, based in Sheboygan Falls, Wisconsin. And 1945 Capital invests in early to mid-stage companies in life sciences, agriculture, and food tech, and emerging technologies. Ladwig has 35 years of experience in research and development, which includes a strong background in commercializing university technologies. And he is chair of the Forward Agriculture Advisory Board. Thanks for being here, everybody. Emily, I'm going to jump right in with you. So one of the things that Arjun pointed out is that this is a collaboration. It's an industry, university, and stakeholder partnership. So that sounds great in concept. How does that work in practice?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So I'll mention two things in particular. So first of all, I'll go up against the cliche. So we hear think big and the sky's the limit, and it's great and very inspiring when you're brainstorming. But when we're considering the practical applications of new technology, it's more efficient. You eventually have to think in small steps. And so I'll use an example of a PI that I'm working with a particular sensor. He had data from different ag research stations here in the state, reached out to a company that had some complementary equipment and said, hey, would you be interested in testing this? And after some back and forth, they said, yeah, sure, we can test it. Send us about 500. And he said, okay, well, I have 5. So, they were just thinking at a different scale. They were thinking acres, and he was thinking, I just want to do a little test plot. And frankly, even if he had 500, it wouldn't have mattered. He just needed to send them 1 or 2. And he did send them a couple and ended up, just based on that initial data, redesigning the casing and everything for the environment that they were in. So collaborating with a university on new innovation is not testing a beta version of a product that's going to launch in 6 months. It's being part of that iterative design process. And I know Sarita's company has been part of those conversations. Kevin's company has participated in those. And then thinking more broadly, maintaining that question feedback loop at really any time in the process. And we can use the example of all the campus consortia that are meeting this week all over, engineering within Cal's, the med school. Lots of industry meetings in early May on campus. And they have different cultures. So in some of them, the grad students present, and the companies are there taking notes, but they don't say anything. They won't ask questions. They won't say, it'd be great if you could da-da. And some of them are very conversational, where they say that, we've been dealing with this issue, or have you thought about the regulatory aspect of this? All these things in these industrial applications that the students otherwise wouldn't hear. So those are the main things that come to mind.
Blane, collaboration is in your title. So you talk a little bit about how this works practically.
Sure. It really starts first off with the strategy. It's what are we trying to get collaboration for? So in the case of Forward Agriculture, it was really a big picture of how we wanted to tie in all of the state's agriculture communities, whether it be from production or processing or governance for that matter, and pulling them all together. So starting with the strategy and then listing out who are the major players around the state, who are the minor players. If we're looking at production, should we just be looking at large farms, small farms, which commodity is being grown on those farms, and going through, putting together the list and saying, okay, now who are representatives? And then, from my point of view, is just getting on the phone and making the calls, stopping by, and trying to build the coalition. Tell the story that Emily and her team have really put together and say, okay, here's the story of what we're trying to do, are you in? And getting the participants to understand that it's in all of our best interest to have something like forward agriculture in Wisconsin.
Yeah, and Sarita, when we think about a big project like this, especially one that's housed at a university, it sort of in some ways implies, we figured this thing out and then we bring it to industry, we bring it to the farmers. But forward ag didn't come up that way, right? I mean, it involved farmers and industry at the front end. So, how important is it to do it that way, and why is that valuable?
I think it's very important to do it, and it's kind of critical because it allows early feedback, establishing early feedback loops. You mentioned small scale to large scale going, there is a gap. It needs to be small, medium, and large, right? Because otherwise it's very hard for research and innovation and creators to take that leap. So I think it's very, very important to do that for that reason. Also for de-risking the process. Ultimately, if you want to commercialize, you want to limit your risk. You want to establish data enough that the stakeholders, investors, will be willing to invest into the process in the future. And also, I think when you are studying, you are a researcher, it allows you to pivot, it allows you to adapt early in the process.
And Kevin, you're coming firmly from the industry side. So what's in it for industry to participate in something like this?
Yeah, I think the key thing is, from an industry standpoint, is you have people who are asking you what problems you have. And that's such a key element. When someone comes to you and say, what problems keep you up at night? What problems do you want to solve? There's a lot of problems out there that are simply not big enough to solve, but the ones that are certainly worthy of some time and attention. So when someone comes to me and says, how can I help you? That goes a long way in being engaged and providing some feedback in terms of what would be useful to our business.
Yeah, I want to hop back to Sarita too here. You give us a slide about process, and I want to hear a little bit about that. So how do we move ideas? How do we use something like this to move ideas more quickly from research to real-world application?
Oh, yes. So can I stand up?
Of course.
Basically, you are going from lab to pilot to demo to commercial. That's and the scale increases, risks become different. Early in the process, you have research and development, then you are proofing the process, you're trying to test the process out, then you're making meaningful quantities of the product so you can test the regulatory safety as well for the regulatory. And then eventually you're going to do industrial scale manufacturing. Sciences, process and scale testing, production, small quantities. By small, I don't mean gram, I mean kilograms and more. And regulatory economics, provable, workable, functional, economical. We have a application and test center at the pilot scale because we recognized early on in 2022, 2023, that was the gap. So we welcome you all to come and test your processes.
Thanks. So when I think about this as a whole project, one of the things that I think about a lot is the way that you've got it, again, it's coming from a university, but it's engaging industry. And those two groups sometimes work at different paces and at different scales, as you were suggesting. So for all of you, how do you manage that? I mean, we're trying to capture here both the dynamics and scale of industry, but also the focus and attention of research at the university level. So how do you balance that?
Well, I really think it starts with setting expectations. Before I came to WiSys, I had 25 years in industry, and so it's setting that level. There's the speed of business. I'm not sure that education always moves at the speed of business, but it's setting the expectation with the partners, The question of how can we help you? Okay, that's a great idea. Let's work on it together. Here's what that really looks like once we get into that conversation, and can you help me move it along quicker? But once the expectations are set, I've found great responsiveness coming back and forth.
And finding that internal champion who sees potential in that idea and really
Definitely.
wants to pursue it. That's, I think, a consistent theme through all those successful projects. Yeah.
Say a bit more about that, like internal champions where? Give us an example.
Well, on both in each piece, and it's not just a company and the university. There's also somebody in the middle, if it's the end user advocating for it, if it's the supplier who would be producing one component. There's somebody with some not just knowledge of the system, but the passion and the faith that this can really make a difference.
Yeah, I would just add, when it comes to partnerships, and I know it's an overused word, but I'll just give you maybe 3 key elements that I think are critically important. The first one is everyone has to really be clear about what they expect to get from the partnership. Why are they doing that? What's in it for them? That's number 1. Number 2 is what will they contribute? What's their role? What are they going to contribute in this process, in this partnership to make sure it's successful? And that's all wrapped around by communication and eventually trust, because I think what you'll find with any partnership that you sign or agree to, there's moments of joy. And that is when you sign the agreement and agree to go in business together, there's a lot of optimism. And that's a great, great day. It's also a great day when you come out the other side with a successful project or initiative. Those are also wonderful days. But what's in the middle is really messy and really ugly and really challenging at times. And I think that's where the trust and the communication has to come into play, because without that, I think your chance of success is much less.
Sarita, go ahead.
I want to use the word ecosystem, and it might sound a little poetic, but actually it is very practical. In that ecosystem, symbiosis, cooperation exists. And you mentioned communications, both of you. It's really important early on, find folks in the industry. If your project is going to lead to a product, start talking with the industry, start talking with the stakeholders, be it farmer, be it a dairy producer. What are their challenges? What are they producing, and what will be the constraints, and what are the advantages? What opportunities lie, what gaps lie? Once you have this open communication with the industry, your industry partners will be very happy to share with you their constraints and what are the opportunities. So funding is really, really critical also. Finding stakeholders who would be willing to fund the projects, but at the heart of it lies really a solid business model. So even working within the organizations, whether it's university and your customers, it's all very important that having really fantastic communication and connecting the dots from the beginning to the end. And those are not going to be perfect in the beginning, but they get better as you have better communications and get the feedback.
Yeah. I think we've got the idea. We have the concept. So I think it would be useful to look at an example. So I'm going to turn to Dr. Sanford, and I'd like you to share a little bit about your experience here and your project, so we can kind of see what this looks like in practice. I'll go ahead to you. You tell me when to stop. This one?
Yep, that's the one. Myself and Dr. Rebecca Larson from UW-Madison were one of the recipients of these Forward Ag R&D grants, and kind of talking about industry feedback and things like that is really how this project kind of started to form together. And so in Wisconsin, we have a lot of cows, and we can make energy out of their manure. But a really big issue that has come up with some of our industry partners, particularly on the digester side, is that if you look at the highlighted hydrogen sulfide there, it's less than 1% of that biogas produced, but it is a significant cost to that operation. I was at a plant, it's a fairly small plant a couple weeks ago, and they spend $30,000 every 2 to 3 months to change out the media to remove that hydrogen sulfide. So kind of looking at that desulfurization, that high cost is something that that industry is very interested in. If you want to click again. You can just click all the way through, actually.
Okay.
All right, we'll keep it simple. All right.
That far.
Not that far, not that far. All right. And, we kind of talked about forward ag, trying to encompass all ag industries. And in the state of Wisconsin, we do have a lot of specialty crop industries. And one thing about those industries is they produce a lot of biomass that is generally not utilized very well. So I had been approached. I do a lot of work with biochar, which is basically converting a biomass into a carbon product. And I got approached by quite a few extension folks and industry folks saying, we have all this material left over after processing this specialty crop. What do we do with it? Can we make it into a biochar? So what our current project has been looking at is we're working with the forestry industry, ag industry, and identifying different biomasses that we can take and we can make it into biochar. And through some funding through Dairy Innovation Hub, we already know that specific biochars, if we dose that biochar with the manure, we can help reduce that hydrogen sulfide production. And so with Forward Ag, we've kind of expanded the different materials that we're looking at. And we're also looking at other alternatives to that desulfurization through kind of carbon or desulfurization filters where the biogas can pass through, and we can put biochar in there instead of some of these other costly medias that often end up in the landfill, and use that for our desulfurization.
Yeah, and we're going to have a chance for Q&A, so you'll get to ask hot biochar related questions in a little bit. But I want to focus on a somewhat different aspect of this than the project itself. So you get the idea of what Forward Ag is accomplishing here. We're accelerating these sorts of attempts to use waste products in agriculture, bring them into broader use in the market. I want to ask you a little about your experience, though, about what you learned in the process of working with industry and with other sorts of partners to bring this project to life.
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned before, researchers do not move at the same speed as industry. So it has been, we need to have a lot of communication with some of our industry partners, particularly on the digester side of things. They're really excited about these potential ideas and being more sustainable and having alternative materials to be able to use. But, as a researcher, I want to make sure it's going to work. And right now we're at the lab scale like we saw earlier, and we're making our way up slowly. And so it takes a lot of communication with the industry partners to try to ease our way into making it more of a widespread method that we can use for desulfurization. So yeah, working with industry partners, there's always some pressure to speed things along, but as researchers, we often want to make sure we're doing it right, and we're not making too big of a leap at one time. So we've been working with some of these companies. We already have some companies lined up that are interested in potentially doing some demo or pilot scale projects with us in the future. So having that open line of communication and trying to not overpromise, and especially on the time, is really important when working with these industry partners.
Yeah, great. So as we're moving into doing more of these sorts of projects and bringing them into scale, for any of you, what do you think are the biggest challenges to doing this, and how does the coalition and collaborative structure of Forward Ag get around that problem?
I would just say, maybe as a general comment, this is an innovation process, and I think too often innovation is viewed as an event. People look at their schedule and say, on a Wednesday and a Friday afternoon, I'm going to innovate this week, and then move on to the rest of my work. It has to be part of what you do. This has to be part of your DNA, and I think that's what we're trying to create here, is a process of creating ideas from customers or stakeholders from the farm, having those ideas get vetted in some way, and then screened so that we can focus on a few that we think are the highest potential ideas out there, and then keep that process and that wheel moving. And that is, I think, the best way to create a very sustainable innovation process. So I think that's the key that we have to think about, is a process, not an event. We have to get a lot of ideas out there because only the good ones will rise to the top, and then a ruthless attempt to commercialize or execute these ideas, because great ideas need to be converted into good businesses. And that is oftentimes the magic, is creating that jump from a great idea that looks good in the lab, that has promise, but isn't quite ready for a business idea or a business launch. How do we make sure that we can cross that hurdle and do it well most of the time?
So Blane and Emily, part of what we're doing here is pulling ideas from across Wisconsin, right? From all the parts of the state. I work for River Alliance. I'm on farms all over the state. There's a lot of good ideas out there. How do we get things to move from local industry, rural communities, campuses across Wisconsin into practice?
Again, I think a big part of it is bringing people together in the same room. When we started putting the concept together, trying to figure out what areas we were going to focus on, we brought people from similar but different, if I can say it that way, backgrounds, similar interests but different backgrounds to the table together to have the conversation. So it could be people who were all in the dairy area, or people who were all in cranberries, or people who were all in potato and vegetable growers in the same area, and not just the growers but the processors, everyone up and down the supply chain, to say, okay, what are the industry issues that we can address and that we can go forward with. So it's starting with that idea and having people see what could be. Yeah. And that's getting the buy-in at that point. And then once they've got the buy-in, the champions that Emily mentioned, once we've got those champions in place, we can keep going back and reminding them of that vision that we've got coming up at the end. And I think that's how we can keep the coalition together. And then once we've got them in place, have them help us provide their networks to expand, just like we're here today. And there may be one or two people in the room who have an idea, say, you know what, I want to be a part of that. I see how that could fit with the research I'm doing today. I see how that could fit with a partner that I'm working with today. And maybe with that, we can move forward and get better ideas, or the great ideas that become the good companies faster.
I think like Blane said, the repetition is key. And those conversations that he mentioned were held in different parts of the state and definitely brought together eclectic groups with very different ideas, and ended up leading to some interesting conversations that we really wouldn't have expected. So it's just maintaining those connections and showing that it's a consistent process. There's a person to go to. I think that's really key to just building the name.
Yeah. Well, as a kind of closing question for all of you, I want you to imagine that you're giving advice to a new researcher or a new company or a farmer interested in collaborating on innovative new projects within Forward Ag. What would you encourage them to think about first? What would you encourage them to do first? Yeah, go for it, Sarita.
To quote Tom Cruise from Mission Impossible, first you dream, and then you think about that dream is your project. And then you think about what do you need to make a list of things. What do you need to accomplish that dream? Say it is building a factory which produces megatons of highly valorized waste to earth or residue to revenue product. Now, how would you get to that? You will need a factory, you will need the funding, you will need the equipment. Now you are in the lab, you know you can make that product, but right now you're using, let's say, a small flask, some chromatographic equipment, some membrane filtration, small centrifuges, and start connecting the dots to how would you get there? And who's going to fund? And who's going to buy? Is it good enough? Is this product acceptable, affordable to the stakeholders? Does it add value to where you are? I think that's how I would do it.
I would say it's all in who you know. So network like crazy. Maintain your connections with your grad school friends and meet companies, meet your colleagues, and build your network.
Tying the two together, it's my belief that people want to help, they just don't know it yet. So it's your job to, or it's our job to be able to articulate what it is that we need, learn what our networks are interested in, and then work on that overlap. Because there's usually an overlap, and that's the place to start, and then we can all be working on the same things.
Yeah, please.
And I would say kind of what everyone else has said is, but I was recently one of those young researchers getting advice, and to have an open mind and make connections with some of these companies. You know, sometimes it's better to try to address a problem that's there than go looking for one. And so working with some of these companies and understanding what the issues are in the industry, you know, you can really make a career out of that.
May I also say one more thing, which I practice a lot in my life? I always look at the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. And I know the answer is somewhere in between. So say it is about networking and you want to approach an industry professional, to vet your idea. What's the worst? They might say no because they couldn't. And what's the best? You have a project proliferating. So answer lies somewhere in between.
I would just quickly end by saying this is industry's opportunity to provide real problems that need solving, and Forward Ag is a conduit back to problem solvers that can help those customers. And I think that's the way we can think about this, as a conduit to help industry solve problems that are out there with smart people who want to solve problems. And I think if we can start and gain momentum and get some early wins, this has a good chance of being very successful.
Thanks, everybody. We're really hoping that you'll engage with Forward Agriculture on this. There's a lot of opportunity here, and I think a lot of great stuff to come. We'd like to turn to you now if you have any questions for the panel. There are microphones going around, so you feel free to raise your hand and ask a question. Right over here.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Hi, my name's Pete. I work at an ethanol plant. Are there any limits to what kind of problems we should or should not give you?
No limits. I can say that because I'm now at UW River Falls and no longer working on Forward Agriculture. Hey, Arjun, are there any limits to the problems that they should be bringing to Forward Agriculture?
No, I think that the broad parameter of residue to revenue, right? Like the idea of are there some, that's where we kind of narrowed the scope of what we were doing in terms of sustainable and resilient agriculture to kind of think about what are some of those additional revenue streams that we could support for the agriculture and the farming industry to relieve the pressure, right? Like the whole idea is that there's only so much we can do with what we have. How are we advancing innovation in this space, and then using the power of all these minds to kind of think about what do we do with those other products and create new things.
And the other thought on that, if you're concerned that the issue may be too large, remember, once we've got the discussion going, we can break it down. A large issue is just a number of small issues working together. So we can start picking them off one at a time. Some will be solved by industry, some will be solved by university, some will be solved somewhere in between, but we can get through those.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, I'm coming to Grace. Thought about it.
Looks like Maria wins.
All right. So it's great that when people meet face to face, obviously that's what we're aiming for here, but what are you trying to set up online so people know who to contact and how to get involved and network with industry and academia for like maybe a newer faculty member or somebody who joins and doesn't know where to start?
That's an Arjun question also. Yeah, you want to come up here? Come on.
These questions seem to be coming to me. We launched a project, it's called Connect Wisconsin. So WiSys has its own website. But we think of Connect Wisconsin as kind of a digital community. Now, we haven't completely launched it yet, but we're working on it, and that would be the space within which we could collaborate online. And our goal is to bring, industry partners online, bring companies, bring researchers, bring all these communities together, and to be able to see across these different communities what people are working on and be able to use that to connect with each other and see what projects there are and how you can work on those things.
Is it almost like the research gate for the scientists? But this is for the entire group of stakeholders and researchers. Yeah.
And then hopefully, as we're getting more support, as we're kind of working together, and again, I liked your question, how big should they should be huge, right? Like the idea that we have this capability in Wisconsin, and we should own it, and we should be not only a national but a world leader with all that capability, and then get support from our government, get support from our industry partners, and then have that available for all of you to be able to kind of access that. That's the big vision of this. Now, we have to kind of figure out where we're going because as we got a certain distance in the NSF competition, we didn't get to the finals. So now but we have this incredible network. And when we talked to all of our industry partners, they all affirmed that the work that we've done, the network, is the most valuable part. Now, where do we go next with this?
Any other questions for our panelists?
Yeah, great questions.
I have one.
Go ahead.
Some of the questions thus far, and certainly the folks on stage, have been about a project that takes something and at the end there's a product or a service or something like that to be implemented in the industry. Are you talking with any community partners, or are there project opportunities that may not be a thing to commercialize? It may be something in a community or something that's related to rural life, that kind of thing. How might someone participate in that space?
Yes. So this was such a broad activity when we started. We had different areas. One was translation to practice, and the idea there was that we'd be working with farmers and farming communities to connect them. So one of the projects that came out of Forward Ag was this idea of peer-to-peer kind of teaching farmers about ideas and then having them talk to their neighbors and that kind of thing. So that's an area and a group that's within Forward Ag that's looking at those kinds of things. What are some of the social challenges? What are some of the economic challenges that we need to be thinking about? Again, we're trying to focus what the project is now that we're kind of looking at the resources that we have, but it is a very broad idea, and as we bring in resources, we can kind of go in these different directions.
Any other questions for our panelists? All right, well, let's give them a round of applause.